Hello and welcome to the New York Empire podcast. I'm Ben Hilton. He's Matt Pippin, Auletta, and there is no Alice Atkins today, but no, it's not because he's afraid of what he might have to say after the DC loss. He is just simply under the weather and getting prepared to take on his old team in the Colorado Apex, rebranded Apex, coming up this weekend. That's Saturday, 7 p.m. in the UFA Game of the Week, or the Watch UFA Game of the Week. I will have that on the call with Brian Jones. So again, get your Watch UFA subscription or just get a ticket to come to the stadium at Memorial Field, and we will see you there. All right, Matt, now we've got to get negative for the first time this season. I think with all the signings, with Atkins, with Demarais, and some of the new young pieces, we're all excited. But DC, New York, Evan Lepler on the broadcast, he was piping it up that it was definitely going to be a rivalry game, and I thought DC played their best game of the season, and the Empire kind of, I wouldn't say went down to the level, but whatever it was, they were playing at the same level. Trading back and forth the lead. Empire led for most of the second and third quarters. And obviously in the fourth, we're going back and forth. Overtime, the Empire have a 92% chance of winning on two different occasions.
Whatever that means, sure.
DC, yeah. Whatever probability says, DC comes out 26-25 winners. Crazy little stats here. DC has now won 5 of the last 6 matchups, despite the Empire winning 3 championships in the last 6 years, and also many of which you were a part of. 15 of the 38 times that DC and New York have met have been decided by one score a game. And so it is one of those rare things where, we've mentioned on the show, I cover Barcelona quite a bit, FC Barcelona against Real Madrid, and it's the same vibe being on the sideline there, that, not to say I get to be a sideline in the Camp Nou, but regardless, being on the sideline for New York, DC, or watching Barcelona against Real Madrid, it does not matter what the records are. It doesn't matter what the up tracking or the down tracking, wherever they are in their seasons. When New York meets DC, when rivals meet, just throw all the tactics out the window. They are going to be equal, and they're going to be up to the challenge.
It's wild that it turned out that way, and it's wild that it always turns out that way. It's just, no matter where the teams are in their respective seasons, who's available, who's not, you end up watching something and thinking, like, here we go again. It was said on the broadcast a few times. Evan Lepler kept alluding to overtime as if he just knew it was going to happen, because it always happens. So yeah, it didn't end up in a win for the good guys in the end there. That was a little crazy. I'm sure we'll get into that. But yeah, I mean, a good watching experience. I enjoyed it top to bottom. Some mistakes from both teams and whatever. It wasn't like the greatest game of Ultimate you've ever seen, but it was a lot of fun, and here we are. It's the best rivalry in the league and has been for a while.
Well, I'll definitely take the mea culpa for overtime. I think I put it in his head even while we were talking pregame. I mentioned to him that Barcelona against Real Madrid, El Clasico, right? The biggest match in international football. I had that stream starting at 3. So I told my audience, I'll get it started at 4 o'clock. For the second half, when I get home, when the game ends. And so I knew that game was going over him. I said to the trainer of the Empire, Ryan Anderson, on the sideline, I was like, I've got another thing coming here, and I know it's going overtime. So that's on me. I put it in his head. I knew it was going to happen. Never scheduled to, well, it's not my fault, but never have 2 things scheduled on the same day. We learned that. All right. Speaking of the sideline, now, before we get to the X's and O's and all that different stuff here, DC had 10 new players in their 20 for this game. So Rowan McDonald, Thomas Edmonds are up in Boston, no Moussa Jah, no Alexandra Fall, Billy O'Brien, Aiden Downey, Cole Jurek, Jasper Tom. None of those were ready yet, those 4. And even Cody Lavernis and Theo Shapinski, they were missing 2 guys that have been on O-lines to start the season for the DC Breeze. So again, 10 new players in their 20. And yet, it has a lot to do with the club game as well. But these 2 franchises and 2 collections of players know each other so well that I can tell you that the trash talk and the chatter on the sideline and everybody afterwards, like, it's all love, it's all fun. But it got real personal, and it got pretty hot and heavy very quickly. I'm talking point 1, point 2, and I want to shout out the best trash talkers, or unless you want to try to guess them from this list. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 were really talking for... Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4 were really talking for DC, and 1, 2, 3, 4 were really talking for New York. I don't know if you want to guess them, or you just want me to throw
No, you can just tell us what you heard. Yeah, I don't want to.
So my chatter MVPs, I want to give one for each team. Sean Mott, the fact that he had the energy to throw 5 assists as well as throw as many, I don't want to say, throw as much chatter as he possibly could. The guy is an energizer bunny in both those ways. A lot of energy from Sean Mott. And for the Empire, we don't know his name yet, but you should. It's Luke Barry. Luke Barry, he was talking like he's a 10-year vet of the UFA. So credit to him. I mean, he really was up for it. And then some other guys, Graham Turner, who was pretty big on some O points, but from minute one, Graham Turner was chatting. Of course, AJ Merriman knows this rivalry well. So
that's the first person I would have guessed. I wouldn't have guessed any of these other players so far. I mean, maybe Barry. I saw the clapping and whatnot, but yeah.
Yeah. But I'm saying from the opening jump. Luke Barry hadn't seen the field and he was already talking. But yeah, AJ Merriman had things to say. Miles Grovich definitely on the field had things to say. Matt LeBar always has things to say. Again, Sean and Mott and Matt LeBar are friends. They go way back, sure. Antoine, I didn't think he was doing more chattering than he normally does, but certainly he was up to the challenge. And then, of course, I mean, the creme de la creme, Alice Atkins on field, certainly. I mean, there were times when, instead of chatting back and forth, it was Atkins being pulled away. But as we know with Kins, he said afterwards, like, it is all just part of the game. Like, it's nothing personal. Everybody's, just up to the challenge. But it definitely, with the way they were talking to each other from minute one, in comparison to the Toronto game, it's night and day, right? It's just the night and day, the vibe, the feeling on the field. And, I think for both those teams, they were getting themselves emotionally ready for the intensity of it. And I think the referees, here's what I'll say here, there were some moments in that game, like I guess we'll call it the travel that winds up actually helping the Empire instead of being a turnover. Like there were moments where both teams had something to complain about, but I thought the refs really did handle the level of intensity that was going on in that game. And so I just want to make sure before anything else, like the refs sometimes get a bad rap, but no, they were really up to all the little ticky-tack stuff and players complaining about this bump and that bump. And I thought they were really consistent with the physicality that they allowed throughout that game.
Yeah, I thought from the few that, you got like good second looks at on replays, I thought they called the game very well from that regard. I think, John Randolph might have had a gripe when he went through Sean Mott, but he definitely like pushed through his shoulder, turned him. I mean, that was a clear foul to me. So I think when it came to all those situations, I think they officiated pretty well. I will say that. Yeah, as far as all the chatter and the intensity, I mean, you could feel it through the screen. You could see they were like trying to ratchet each other up. They were getting under each other's skin, and it was bringing out the best in people to an extent. I think we saw some pretty good bids and some pretty good skies, and it just kind of like that magnifies the vibe on the field, and it was just, you could tell it was just growing and growing and growing. Yeah, maybe it would have been even more of an eruption at some point if we hadn't had so many wonky turnovers throughout the game. I feel like that's always a little deflating for both sides. It seemed like some wind was the culprit for some of those. It was just, the turnover battle was very strange during that game. I don't know if you want to start to get into that and break it down, but
yeah, let's do that. Yeah, both teams had 16 turns in the game, where normally in this rivalry you see from 10 to 12, where if a team can get even single digits, that's a good shout that they're going to win. No, that's not always been the case, but yeah, 16 for other games that you watch around the UFA doesn't feel like a lot, but in the East Division, 16 feels like a ton. Both teams had 7 breaks. Empire were 8 of 10 on their hucks, and yet they still had those long throws that felt like, was it the right choice? Could they have done something better there? And then the Breeds were 6 of 11, where they floated a bunch of different stuff that the Empire were able to eat up. Let's go. Turnovers.
Yeah, it felt like both teams underthrew like 2 or 3 hucks that were just like easily picked off. Like they count as blocks on the stat sheet, but it wasn't like the defender did anything amazing. They had like both teams missed through some like easy swings, like around break kind of swings, and they just went really far, and people just couldn't track them down before they sailed harmlessly to the turf. Like when you think about how many turnovers there were compared to how many were actually blocks, it was a little different than I would have expected in this game. It was a lot more of this disc sailing to ground than disc, getting swatted away or, point blocked or just however it might have happened. So that was interesting. And it seemed like they just kept trading the punches in the same way. It was like, oh, they threw it away. Oh, the D-line just gave it right back in like almost mirror image of some of the plays. So it was interesting to see. And, the coaches weren't really yanking the D lines to get the offense back out there, which I like. I like that they let them play a little, get some reps, maybe tire out the O lines. But yeah, sometimes it was just like a little too cavalier on like the easy reset or the little, high release over the mark, like to a little up line. And they kind of sailed on people. And yeah, some of the turns were not great, but most of them were just like, oh, that just kind of didn't work out. Like when it was initially released, I never thought like, wow, bad throw.
Hey Empire fans, ShopEmpireUltimate.com is your home for all the latest Empire gear. From hats to hoodies to discs and coaching, ShopEmpireUltimate.com is the best place to get yourself ready for the next Empire game.
Hola Empire aficionados. ShopEmpireUltimate.com es tu casa para todo lo nuevo de Empire. Desde cachuchas a sudaderas a frisbees y entrenadores. ShopEmpireUltimate.com es el lugar para que te alistes para el siguiente juego de Empire.
Well, I want to give credit to both coaches here because, yeah, you're right. A lot of those look like unforced errors, but it was very purposeful. And with the wind at the Stadium at Memorial Field, it is a bit deceptive, where up in Montreal, that swirling wind, you just got to put some mustard on it. But due to the one end zone where the rock is, where the face of that rock is, there's that 20 to 30 yards as you're approaching that where anything downwind, as you point, is going to sail quite a bit more. And it is really difficult to recalibrate your throws in that wind that does at times, again, push things up, push things down, and anticipating that both coaching staffs, I think, really had a good game plan coming in. And I would go from sideline, not sideline to sideline, but from huddle to huddle. And they were trying to do a similar thing where the Breeze were looking to force the Empire into downwind same third throws, not necessarily hucks, but just same third throws, especially into that corner. And they got a bunch of turnovers that way. And they were willing, that being both teams, to allow those big cross-field swings. And some of the things that were highlighted in that game, as successes, is that whenever Atkins could really get some horizontal yardage there, I think it helped the Empire. And then when they would quickly, and Ben Yacht did this really well on one of the fast breaks in the second half, where Yacht receives the disc and immediately gets it right back to the middle of the field from that sideline perch. And that moved the Empire quickly through the middle of the field. And either the Empire through Jack or DC through Boxley, that was the goal. It was, all right, they're going to force us wide. And when we get wide, we've got to get this thing back to the middle of this as fast as possible because our turnovers are coming on those final third throws where you're throwing to the same third, I should say. You had 3 turns for LeBar, 2 for Randolph, 2 for Gavin May, and 10 different Empire players with turnovers. And again, a lot of those were that way. They were just either final third or same third throws. And when I say final third, I mean on the edges and not just in the middle of the field. So again, a credit to them. And then there was even, again, those reset things where the Yacht reset that was then picked off by Lou early in the game. And again, it was a forward reset, but that on the first turn that New York had, it's so similar to going the other direction in OT when Randolph winds up just popping it up a little bit when Van den Brink was looking for the poach. And that's not dissimilar from the Alex Davis reset turnover at 16-16 before the end of the third. Like all 3 of those throws were so similar. They were 8 to 10 yards. And it was interesting to me that both these teams, with the Empire especially, they were willing to just continue to grind and say, all right, we're not worried to put the disc in that guy's hand or that guy's hand or that guy's hand. And I think that's why you had 10 different guys committing turnovers. Meanwhile, DC, we're like, hey, Jacques Nissen, we're going to live or die by your ability to throw in the wind, which was really, truly exceptional. And yet there were times when the Empire, particularly, again, shouts to Luke Barry, was able to put a really good mark on and make things tough for DC, especially when they would try to do those long swing passes.
Yeah, I think credit to DC too. Sean Mott had some nice, just like bladey kind of stuff through the middle that he just kind of picked the right spot and found the openings and just kind of picked them apart a little bit. So, yeah, they handled the wind. They did what they needed to. Really, it's just it was just such a weird watch. I don't even know what to say. It's like I feel like both teams played pretty well, but there were all these like little mistakes and little turnovers. It's just, I don't know. I didn't come away from the game thinking like, wow, this was really ugly or they played really poorly.
No, I mean there were so many moments there where I thought the Empire were gonna
I thought they were going to
create that.
start rolling at one point.
Yeah,
Even,
you felt
and
like that.
It just kind of those like little mistakes just kept DC hanging around. And credit to them, like you said, they were missing a lot of people, but it didn't look like there was any sort of chemistry issues with new players. It didn't look like anyone kind of didn't know their role. They just looked like a well-oiled machine, and I think it's a different roster composition, as you mentioned, over the past few years, but I do think that they are a little bit more daring with the disc now, and that is one of the things that's held them back for a while, and I think it enabled them to like stay close in these games, and I think it will pay dividends for them throughout the season.
Well, very much like I was talking about Lavernus before. Like they have a lot of just DC kids that have kind of grown up in that, not even culture or style of play, because I think players like Johnny Maltz and Rowan dictated the style of play, but there is still chemistry that exists regardless of the style of play. And you could see that where Gabe Dowd, he's a sophomore at Michigan, he just breaking out right now because he's just a closer. Like whenever he gets the disc, he's only going to consider a 5 to 10 yard a little dump off, whatever it is, and then you're just going to keep on moving. And Micah Wagner on defense, same thing. Like you just have guys who are young and willing to run and move the disc. And unlike other teams around the league that are kind of just this youth revolution and they make a lot of mistakes together, like Gabe Dowd is not put in positions to make mistakes. Like get the disc back in the hands of Sean Mott and then just keep on running. And then same thing, get the disc in the hands of Nissen and keep on running. Get this in the hands of AJ Merriman and Boxley, right? And so for DC, they still have the superstars you could feel that they were relying on. And Sean Mott, having played club with DC last season, I think is really helpful because the chemistry is already built in to that as well. And yeah, he made his mistakes, like in OT, he'd lose the disc. And
that was.
I mean, so let me just go there too about all these little moments where I really did think the Empire were going to pull away. Like it was 10-8, Atkins completely takes over on that point. And
he played great in general. I just want to throw that out in case we don't really get back to it. Yeah, he had some really nice throws, and it's like 100% what that offense needs.
Yeah, I mean, his only bad turnover was a miscommunication where Jack was dancing, and that's one of those where you 50% on the thrower, 50% on the receiver, because Jack danced too much, but Atkins also didn't give Jack the time that if you've been playing with him for 2 years, that just give him a second, he'll get free there in that open space, right? And then I also thought late in the game, Oliver Chartak skies for the 22-21 with 1:38 left. I thought the Empire had it there. 19 seconds left, definitely a failed opportunity not to get a last throw off. They turn it over there, have got to get something there. And then in overtime, again, Mott lose the disc, Empire starts with a break. Then they force a DC timeout defensively, so everything is going right. Then again, it's just DC battles back. They find their way upfield. They slowly work it through. Again, Boxley is at times going every other. And now you're on the final point, and you either score that point or you go to double overtime and start with the disc. So you get 2 chances just to put the disc home. And as I said, that one just floated on JR a little bit. And Van den Brink, good on him. Young guy, third professional game, just intercepts on the poach, and it's Rayfuse at the buzzer, and there it is.
Yeah, I John Randolph played a good game. It's unfortunate that is how it came down at the end, where he just, he throws it away and gets scored on. It was all just very quick within a span of a few seconds. But, I don't know if that needs to be communicated better ahead of time or what, but like, don't throw anything even remotely close to a DC defender. We can hold the disc and just let time expire, and we'll play an untimed offensive point after this where we can just grind, or just, hold it for a few seconds and then just bomb it towards the end zone and see what happens. Maybe we get lucky with, a tip, or just it comes down to a big boy, like just whatever. But just the way that ended, you're watching and you're like, all right, they got a good shot here. They're in. Oh, the game's over. It's like you couldn't even process how quickly it just swung the other way. It was jarring. I'm sure that's not a nice way to go home when you think you had it and then you lose it like that. At least if you're on offense and you need to score and there's like 30 seconds left, like if you don't score, it's like, damn, we had a chance, whatever. This was just like snap of the fingers, overdone. What happened? It's like you don't even have a second to like process it. Yeah.
No, and as you said, I went up and down the rosters, and I'm like, well, that guy didn't particularly play a poor game. I mean, like there were huge matchups for Drew Snoddigal. I was impressed with his day. The big name to mention in his UFA debut, playing 12 O points and a D point at University of California, Santa Cruz product in Kai Snyder's. And, he's a really quiet kid. I mean, Evan Lepler had said kind of Lithio 2.0, because that's what Anthony Nunez and Matt Cat Stevens kind of got out of it when he showed up at tryouts. And I could say I drove him home from the first tryout with Gavin May. And, he's a nice kid. And he said as much as John Lithio did. So I think, the vibes are very similar. And even the way offensively, I think, John Lithio is definitely a good model for him to follow. Hopefully he can get to that level at some point. But I was really impressed with what he did in his debut and worked things out. And then Whitlock, and I said it on the broadcast, I'm going to reiterate here in case people were there. Ben Yacht does not, I am doing everything I can on this podcast, and for most of the people listening might be New York Empire fans. They know that Yacht is not the villain the league makes him out to be. But shout out on Mother's Day, by the way, to his wife Anna, my mother of their new son. But this is a different Yacht that we've been seeing now for about the last 3 years, and I'll say especially the last 2 years. And I'm going to go even farther and say definitely this year, where he is so much of a leader, more than you'd expect him to. There's a reason why when I talked about all the chatter, I didn't mention Ben Yacht, because Ben Yacht, when he has to say something, he will. But most of the words coming out of his mouth were trying to guide Whitlock in those pulls. A lot of those pull positions, like Whitlock, obviously on his own, like the mastery on those pulls, awesome. So many times did DC have to set up in their own end zone, and we talked about it last week as a great equalizer. But Yacht was the one pointing to the spot, telling Whitlock, aim for that. That's what you're aiming for. And again, it's on Whitlock to execute, obviously. But so many times Yacht would say, this is where you need to go with that pull. This is where you need to go with that pull. And this is how you handle this matchup. This is how you handle that matchup. And just being in the ears of a lot of those young big dogs on the Empire. And Yacht was just a consummate leader, I thought, the whole time throughout that game. And again, that's a credit to his evolution as a player. And again, for me, Whitlock, talking to Anthony Nunez last week, he looks so much more comfortable than he did even against Toronto. So, glass half full. There's so many things here. Like Luke Barry was better than he was in his debut, scoring his first goal. Westfield, New Jersey kid who's been trying out for a number of years with the Empire. And so, we can have a bigger conversation here about, what is New York Ultimate? And I put the air quotes on that because unlike DC, where they do kind of all play in similar leagues coming up and all that, like New York is different. There's the city leagues, right? There's Westchester, there's New Jersey, where Luke Barry's coming from. Like you came out from Long Island, so there is definitely no epicenter of New York Ultimate where people get a lot of reps together. But you could definitely feel that like Luke Barry is a New York Empire player. Like that is what he's playing for his hometown team, and you really do feel that energy there.
Yeah. One thing about Yacht, he did have a relatively quiet game by his standards. He I felt like he took up a lot of space on the field, and there was like some gravity around him, and I felt like that allowed some other people to pump up on the stat sheet and everything. But I don't know. Just be interesting to see in more tough matchups against tough opponents if he kind of pops off a little bit more if they need him to, because he had one drop that was, whatever. It was under pressure with two guys right there. But in general, it was a much more subdued game from him. Maybe they could have leaned on him a little more in some of those situations. But again, I don't really think anybody played poorly. It was just kind of a product of how the game flowed and what teams were trying to take away and everything. So I don't know. It's nice to hear that the leadership is apparent on the sidelines, though. That's always what you want from the veterans.
Okay, so kind of putting this game to bed, my big question now, and not even looking ahead Colorado, because Dan Desmarais is likely out for Saturday's game 2, still in bureaucratic purgatory, unfortunately. So he could be around, but likely not. And so when you watch that game against DC, unlike Toronto, where you're like, where Desmarais goes, like, it'll be great, it'll work out, it's fine, right? But then against DC, where you felt like Empire definitely a Dan Desmarais for putting this game away, what role and how do you see him fitting into the Empire? Like, what does this Empire team, having a look at DC and that loss, what do they need from Desmarais? Like, where do they need him?
It's interesting because over the course of the 2 games they've played, I think they played like 9 deep on O-line both games, but it wasn't always the same 9. So, you
Yeah.
know, they have a lot of options with who they want to plug in and shift and move around, or if you want to give somebody a few reps on a D-line here and there, like, you just bolster a D-line with Don or Yacht or Atkins, like you can, because then you can still play whoever you want on offense, and it seems like it's going to function fine. Like they still have the bodies, they still have the throwers, they kind of have everything they need. So from a depth standpoint, I think the team is in a really good spot. I guess I would say I would have liked to have seen a little more from Alex Davis during the game. Like he didn't play poorly either at all. But I think on offense, one of the things I noticed early was that the team was a little far downfield and a little stagnant. And I don't know if that was because they expected some throws to go up and everybody kind of shifted and then it didn't happen. And then they were a little slow to like come back in more useful reset space or something. But, I mean, where do you want to put one of the best players on the field? Probably just on offense downfield with some of them and you shift somebody. But I don't really know who that is or what or where, because like half the time it seems like Atkins was like behind the disc, but he's starting downfield and then he's moving. And then, same thing with Jack. Jack is like facilitating the offense, but then he's like cutting up space in the middle. I mean, you have like a Swiss Army knife with Oliver Chartok because he's not necessarily the handler, but he is very comfortable with the disc. I think, he does get a lot of handling reps in club. So it's just, you have so many pieces that can kind of do it all. And I guess I would like to know what the like coaching staff's like, this is our 8 or 9 when everyone's available, more than anything, because it's like it's really hard to figure out what they want to do. They have some players where like you might put somebody who's pretty good at offense on like your second D line because you don't know where else to put them, but it doesn't really make sense not to roster them. But if you just need a block, maybe they don't even play, and it's like that kind of situation actually happened to me a little bit in 2019. It was like I was good enough to be on the 20 pretty much every week, but where are you going to play me? I'm not necessarily going to get a block. So like Brian Jones put me on like second D line, hoping that if we got a block and we didn't want to use a timeout, like maybe I could help that D line move the disc a little better. It's like wasn't necessarily the best fit for me, but like so that's the thing. You can shift so many pieces. So like I guess to answer your question more succinctly, I would just make him cut downfield with Yacht, Atkins, and you just kind of see how it goes. That's just very big athletic people in a lot of space, and I don't know who you pull eventually off that line, but I mean it's nice to have options.
Well, it's interesting you say that because for starters, like Aver Shapiro, I think is in the situation right now. That
100%. He didn't even play, and you see him on the sideline, and he's cheering, helping, whatever. But like, that's exactly where kind of I felt. It's like, well, here I am. What can I do? I know I'm good, but like, you don't need me for this situation currently. So it's,
Well, I mean, again, those are the tough choices you have to make with your 20. Like Aver Shapiro, I think by and large, at least reputation-wise, is a better offensive player than Bobby Elston. But Bobby Elston has proved to be just a bigger body in the air. We saw Bobby got 2 blocks in the game, right? So like, I'm not saying it came down to those two. I don't know, but I'm saying it's like those are the kind of choices that Coach Anthony Nunez and Coach Matt Cat Stevens had to make. And it's funny you say that too, because Everest might be here, but again, at the end of his career, his last 2 seasons, it was Matt Cat Stevens in this exact same situation, being on the D2. Because he was being phased out of the O-line as well. So if there's anybody who's going to kind of understand that plight, it's Cat himself or Matt himself. And then for Desmarais, I'll add to that, and I'm going to add, I'm not speaking for Atkins, but last week Atkins kind of said, hey, even against Toronto, we have some few things to work out. And what I'm seeing up close and personal is just a timing thing. And I don't think Desmarais actually solves those problems without reps. And I think when you mention Alex Davis, the interesting thing to me is I'm very optimistic that he's still rounding into form. Remember, he did not play high-level ultimate now for the better part of almost 2 years. So you could see that, he came back to practice about a month and a half ago. So he's still rounding into form. And there were times in that game, as you mentioned, that Yacht was attracting 2, especially when he would go deep. And there just wasn't the reps necessary yet for somebody to know who to fill. Was it going to be Jacob? Was it going to be Oliver on the open side or the break side? Was it going to be Alex Davis? And you could just feel like they needed more reps together to kind of fine tune all that. And you're right, with 9, it's a little harder to do than 7. And then you add Desmarais and throw him into there. And the most optimistic thing would be that Desmarais is just so good of a player that he won't need those reps, right? That you just pop him in there. And sometimes it works. Sometimes from day one, you're like, that guy gets it. No timing necessary. There's no rev up period. He's just ready to go. So optimistically, that's what might happen. And now again, we're going to go back to Colorado in a second, but now looking ahead, Don Desmarais is now likely going to debut in DC against DC. And so in terms of the ace up the sleeve, the Empire will have that card to play.
So you're saying the Empire are going to win that game by 1, probably in overtime. That's the right? You add him, and then we'll just flip the script since it'll always overtime.
On a Desmarais Callahan, I mean, it certainly would be for the story. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would expect that Desmarais will be playing where is necessary, but as I said, like, it really is, and I have to believe Matt and Anthony when they say this. It will depend on how practice looks. Like, they really do, and a lot of credit to the ways that the league has grown. Like, when you talk to coaches, they're like, we make our 20 decisions based on practice, based on game tape, based on, hours and hours. It's not just vibes. It's not just saying that player is better than that player, therefore he belongs in the 20. It's like, what role are we asking for against these particular matchups? And those are the choices that are made. And I think the cool thing about Desmarais, but the hard thing about Desmarais is like, he's going to be in the 20, but it's not a matter of where and how he fits in. So yeah, I don't want to look ahead too far to DC in 2 weeks, but boy, that's, we knew it would be good, but that one might even be better than this one.
I imagine it would be cleaner as long as the wind isn't as swirly. I think
the Cardinal Stadium win. I think it's Cardinal Stadium. No, Cardini Field.
Yeah.
Cardini Field is very vertical. The wind is very vertical, and it flows a little bit better. It's usually you either get a harsh upwind or harsh downwind, if I remember right. You played there more than I did. Yeah. I didn't even play there. I just called games there for. What school is that even? That's their D3 team. They are the Cardinals. I don't remember who it is. Anyway,
I forget. Yeah,
you get the point.
Yeah.
I called games there years and years ago, and the wind doesn't change there. All right, let's look ahead to Colorado real quick here. As I said, Desmarais is likely out for the game. He's currently listed as out on the squad list. No Oliver Chartok, no Jacob Cowan, no Gavin May, or Oliver Fay. So a lot of big boys for the Empire missing against Colorado, and Eberhard is back, so a bit of throwing, a bit of handling has now been re-added to that O-line in place of at least 2 of those big bodies in Chartok and Cowan. Meanwhile, for Colorado, they'll be missing Quinn Feiner, Ananda Minfink, and Connor Tabor, who have still yet to make their season debuts. And then for all the losses of Colorado, it's not just Atkins. They lost Noah Kuhlman, Matt Jackson, Connor Olson, Kai Marshall, Tobias Brooks, Zeke Thorson. Elliot Hawkins only played 4 games, but still, again, a talented player. That's a lot of talent. That is...
Yes. Yeah, big time.
Like 8 of their top 12, 13 players from a season ago. They still have Seth Ferris, who gets better and better every year, Thomas Brewster, Jay Frood, Sam Van Dusen. But, it's time for new blood in Colorado for sure. So if you're the Empire, and LSU, like, coming off a loss that you should have won, and now you have a team that in Colorado, you feel like on paper, at home, you got to be better than them. How do you approach that game mentally?
Really, all you want to do is just make sure offensively that you execute and you work on your timing, and you don't need to force anything. You don't need to throw up any 50-50s. You don't need to give them like even a chance early in the first quarter where like they feel like they have like a puncher's chance, because they probably don't, and you probably know that, but you still don't want to play parts of the first half different with like this little bit of stress. You just want to kind of work on your timing, work on your flow. You can kind of see, all right, here's who's available today. Like, how do we do this? Here's who's available. Like, just work on your timing, work on your reps, and everything should go the way you want it to. You don't need to force anything, and you just play smart and play clean, you will take care of business, and your defense on the other end will definitely take care of business, and it should not be an issue.
And not only that, but Colorado also has DC the night before.
Yeah, not an easy task. That's a tough road trip.
Exactly. So it's you come from Colorado all the way to DC, and then you got to come up to New York for the next day, the next night. So it's 24 hours.
That might be the toughest road trip of the season. I don't know the ins and outs of every team's schedule, but that can't feel good on paper.
No, yeah, for Colorado, as you said, it wasn't just about the talent, but this road trip is really, really tough. And again, they get to meet their former friend in Alice Atkins, who from 22 to 25, counting one playoff game, 76 goals, 99 assists, 36 blocks, over 10,000 throwing yards, close to 6,000 receiving yards, 63 hucks. And you could definitely see that, yes, they were able to pull out a win already this season, but you could see that Colorado is a new team. They're a different team, and they've got to solve problems in different ways. And again, if you're the Empire, not only D-line, but I would say for their O-line, continue to refine things that if you turn the disc over, you want to go get that disc back. Because again, that's also an O-line in Colorado that is not used to playing defense together. And they're still figuring things out as to how to get the disc back. So I think for the Empire, you've got those big goals, but if anything, it's now this, you got to get a win. Obviously, it's must win, because as we were talking about before broadcast, like Toronto is sneaky, making this a really muddy East Division, and Montreal, who I think still has huge upset potential, the way they've played against all of Boston, DC, and Toronto, like upset watch for the rest of season if they start 0 for 4 in the standings. Like, so even if they're knocked out, like Montreal is awesome, and then they're likely going to get Bonneau back in a few weeks, and we'll see what their record is. But I mean, I think if Bonneau's available, they likely beat DC. And they likely beat Toronto with Bonneau in tow. So, I mean, they're just going to get more and more tough. And yeah, the East Division is not going to be easy here. You've got to beat the team in Colorado.
No, and Toronto also has definitely a different schedule. They play Pittsburgh, they play Oregon. Seattle's not necessarily an easy game, and they play Indy. So, there are a lot of non-division games where they can accrue some wins where you're not worried about just the East beating up on each other. So, if they just pluck a few wins here and there and then get, one upset in the division or something, they only play Boston once, so that's good for them too. Like, they could end up having a pretty good record, even if they're not necessarily quote unquote better than DC or New York. So, you just got to be careful. They could have a playoff record, and you might be, you, like you said, you just need to take care of business. You need to get this win against Colorado in however it happens, hopefully a stress-free environment. The team builds on chemistry and everything, and they go from there. But yeah, you just got to take care of business and get this one. This is one of the easier ones on the schedule on paper.
Yeah, well, it's very selfishly, of course, I want his status to change. I want to obviously be on the call for the Dan Desmarais debut for the Empire. That would be awesome. But again, if not, we expect that he would be available the next weekend against DC at DC. But either way, Dan Desmarais or not, the Empire still have some unfinished business now, having a heartbreaking overtime loss against the rivals in DC. So it's going to be Colorado at New York, 7 p.m. on Saturday night. Again, it is the game of the week with myself and Brian Jones on Watch UFA. And if not, you can get your tickets, come to the stadium. And we had a really fun time on Mother's Day. So again, it'll be a nice little first Saturday night. First night? I don't know what time it is. It's the first one that's, I think, going to be dark the whole time. Either way, whatever you want to call it, night game for the Empire this season. But yeah, so that's what's going on. And we will definitely see you on Saturday night. And we'll also, obviously, for Matt and myself, we'll see you next week. And I think Atkins might have something to say about facing his old team in Colorado. So for myself, and yeah, Atkins wasn't here this week, but for Alex and Matt and myself, we'll see you next time.